Hello, students. In today's lecture, we will discuss chapter 18, that is Neural Control and Coordination, and this will be your theory part 1. And in today's session, we will cover NCERT section 18.1, 18.2, and 18.3. So, this is disclaimer. So, this will be our learning objectives for today. So, we will understand basic structure and function of neural system. Then we will identify components of human neural system. Then we will describe organization of central and peripheral nervous system. Then we will explain the structure of neuron. Then we will understand neuron functioning and synaptic transmission. Then we will recognize the role of neurotransmitters. Then we will comprehend nerve impulse conduction. And this will be our learning objectives for today. Let's see the index. So we will start with the introduction. Then we will cover neural system and it will cover NCERT section 18.1. Then we will discuss human neural system and this will cover NCERT section 18.2. Then we will discuss neuron as structural and functional unit and this will cover NCERT section 18.3. Then we will bind up the chapter with summary. Then we will solve some NCERT based questions and we'll end this session with keynotes and interesting questions. So let's start the chapter. So this is the introduction. We will start with coordination. What is coordination? So coordination is the way different organs in our body work together smoothly to perform their functions efficiently. So it majorly ensures that organs like the heart, lungs and brain communicate and support each other to maintain balance and proper functioning of the body. So during physical exercise, when you start moving your muscles, your body needs more energy to power the activity. This increased energy demand is met by breaking down food molecules like glucose and fats through processes like cellular respiration, which produces ATP, the energy currency of the cell. So the body also increases heart rate and breathing to supply more oxygen to the muscles, helping them to work efficiently and sustain the activity. So, energy demand, as we discussed, that energy demand increases for muscular activity during physical exercise. Talking about oxygen, when oxygen supply increases, the body's cells receive more oxygen, which enhances cellular respiration. So, this process allows cells to produce more energy in the form of ATP, supporting increased metabolic activities and bodily functions. So, this is very important for processes like muscle activity during exercise, or we can say maintaining vital organs, or we can say vital organ functions, as it is important for the whole functioning of our body. So, when a person's respiration rate increases, it means that they are breathing faster, usually because the body needs more oxygen. So this happens during physical activity when the body's demand for energy rises or when there is a shortage of oxygen or excess carbon dioxide in the blood. So this is related to how cells use oxygen for cellular respiration to produce energy, and the body adjusts breathing to meet this increased demand. So heartbeat increases. So when the heartbeat rate increases, it means the heart is pumping blood faster, which is usually a response to physical activity, stress, or certain body needs. So this happens because the heart's muscle contract more quickly, sending more blood to the body tissues and organs to supply them with oxygen and nutrients. So this shows how cardiovascular system works to meet the body's demands during different situations. So blood flow also increases due to increase in the heartbeat. Now, what happens when you stop exercising? So when you stop exercising, your body gradually returns to its resting state. Your nerves, lungs, heart, kidneys all slow down their activities to normal levels. So the nervous system calms down, your breathing becomes regular, and your heart rate increases and decreases, and your kidneys continue to manage waste and balance fluids in the body, ensuring everything works smoothly again. So activities of nerves, lungs, heart, kidney gradually return to normal. So talking about coordination, it is a process through which two or more organs interact and complement the function of each other. And what happened during exercise, energy demand increases from increase in muscular activity, oxygen supply also increases, respiration rate or also increases, heartbeat rate also increases, and so blood flow will also increase. But after stopping exercise, activities of nerves, lungs, heart, kidney are they all gradually return to normal. Okay, so this is about coordination. Now let's see in detail. So you can see here the nervous system, neurotransmitter, which is the chemical that is responsible for nerve impulses, for conducting the nerve impulses. Then you can see endocrine cells. The whole endocrine system is responsible here. You can see the way hormones are moving inside the vessels. That is hormone in the bloodstream. You can see the target cells. Okay, so we will talk about it in detail. So the body's organs like muscles, lungs, heart, blood vessels, and kidneys, they work together smoothly because the nervous system and endocrine system coordinate their functions. So the nervous system sends quick signals through nerves to control immediate actions like breathing or moving muscles, while the endocrine system uses hormones to regulate slower, long-term processes such as heart rate, blood pressure, and kidney function. So together, they ensure that all the body systems operate in harmony to maintain homeostasis and support life activities. So, neural system and endocrine system work together. They integrate and synchronize body activities. It means that the role of nervous system in coordinating and regulating various functions of the body. So, the nervous system through the brain, spinal cord, and nerves ensures that different body parts work together smoothly and together, allowing for quick responses to stimuli and maintaining overall body balance as well as function. So let's talk about role of systems. The role of systems in the body here refers to how different organs and groups of organs work together to carry out specific functions necessary for survival. For example, digestive system breaks down food into nutrients, the respiratory system takes in oxygen and releases CO2, and the circulatory system transports these essential substances to the cells throughout the body. So here we can see that each system has a unique role and they all work together in a coordinated manner to maintain life processes and overall body function. The neural system creates a structured direct connection network that allows the body to quickly transmit signals between different parts, enabling fast and efficient coordination of activities like movement, sensing, and responding to various stimuli. Talking about endocrine system, it helps the body work together smoothly by sending chemical messages called hormones through the blood to different organs, telling them what to do and how to respond, which is known as chemical integration. Neural organization in animals. So here in the diagram, we can show the network of neurons in Hydra, which is a simple organism with decentralized nervous system. So unlike humans, Hydra lacks a brain and has a nerve net that spreads throughout its body, allowing it to respond to stimuli from any part. So this network enables basic reflex actions and coordination without a central control center, which demonstrate how even simpler organisms can have functional neural system. Now, neurons, these are special cells in the body that help us sense and respond to different things around us like touch, sound, or light. So they can pick up signals from the environment, process that information, send messages to the other parts of the body to make our bodies react, such as moving a hand away from the heart. So such as if we move our hand towards the heat, we will feel that way, that we suddenly will away our hand from that heat. Okay, so moving a hand away from the heat is a example of it. So this ability to detect and pass on signals is a key to how our nervous system works, allowing us to interact with the world. So lower invertebrates like Hydra have a very small nervous system. So Hydra has a network of neurons, which means it has decentralized nervous system, as we have just discussed, where many neurons are connected in a web-like structure. So this allows Hydra to respond to stimuli such as touch or light without a central brain, making its nervous system highly basic and efficient for its simple body structure. Insects, talking about insects, they have a well-organized nervous system with a brain and several ganglia, which are clusters of nervous cells, along with neural tissues that help control their bodily functions and responses. So, in insects, they have better organized nervous system. Here, a brain is present along with number of ganglia and neural tissues. Talking about vertebrates, which are animals with backbone, have a more developed neural system compared to invertebrates. This means their nervous system is more complex and advanced, allowing them to process information faster, respond to their environment more effectively, and perform more sophisticated behaviors. So, it can be explained through the presence of a well-organized brain and a spinal cord, which are key parts of the CNS, or we can say central nervous system, in vertebrates. So vertebrates possess a more developed neural system. Let's talk about human neural system. So it consists of CNS, which is central nervous system, and the peripheral nervous system, which is PNS. So the CNS includes the brain and spinal cord, which acts as the control center for processing information and coordinating body activities. Talking about PNS, PNS comprises nerves that connects the CNS to the rest of the body, enabling communication between the brain and various organs, muscles, and sensory receptors. So this system allows us to respond to stimuli, so you can think, remember, and control voluntary movements. So we have CNS and PNS under human neural system. So it is mainly, as we have just talked, it is mainly divided into two main parts. Let's talk about it in detail. CNS is made up of brain and spinal cord. It acts as the main control center of the body. It receives, processes, and sends information from different parts of the body to help us think, move, feel, and respond to our environment. So the CNS interprets signals from our senses and decides how to react, making it essential for all of the actions and bodily functions. So it is a site of information processing and control. So it includes the brain and spinal cord. That is, the brain and spinal cord together form the CNS, which controls all bodily functions and responses. So the brain, located in the skull, is responsible for thinking, memory, emotions, and coordinating voluntary actions, while the spinal cord, protected within the spine, acts as a pathway for signals between the brain and the rest of the body, also helping control reflexes. So both work together to ensure the body functions smoothly and ensures appropriately to internal and external stimuli. So PNS includes all the nerves in the body that are connected to the CNS, which is made up of the brain and spinal cord. So these PNS nerves helps carry messages between the CNS and rest of the body, allowing us to sense our environment, move our muscles, and control bodily functions like heartbeat and digestion. So PNS comprises of all the nerves of the body associated with the CNS. So it connects the CNS to all parts of the body. It means we know that peripheral nervous system, or we can say PNS, which connects the central nervous system as CNS, consisting of brain and spinal to all parts of the body. So here the PNS is made up of nerves that carry messages between the CNS and other parts, enabling communication for movement, sensation, and regulation of bodily functions. So let's talk about peripheral neural system, or PNS, in detail. So as we have just discussed, it consists of all the nerves and ganglia outside the CNS, which includes the brain and spinal cord. So it connects the CNS to the rest of the body, enabling communication between the brain and spinal cord with muscles, organs, and sensory receptors. So the PNS is divided into two main parts, that is somatic nervous system, which controls the voluntary movements and sensory information from the skin and muscles, and the autonomic nervous system, which regulates involuntary functions like heartbeat, digestion, and respiration. So you can also see the picture of PNS in the diagram that is given here. Now, nerve fibers in the peripheral nervous system are of two types. Okay, now we have here efferent fibers, also called as sensory fibers, which carry signals from the body tissues and organs to the CNS, like the brain and spinal cord, so the body can sense and respond to the changes in the environment. So, efferent fibers, or we can say sensory fibers, they transmit impulses from bodies, from tissues or organs to the CNS. Now we have second one is efferent arteriole, or we can say efferent fibers. They are also known as motor nerves, are part of nervous system that carries signals from the CNS to the muscles, glands, and other peripheral organs, telling them what actions to perform, like moving a muscle or releasing a hormone. So these fibers are essential for carrying out responses to stimuli and enabling the body to react and function properly. Now, PNS is split into two parts. One is somatic neural system, which sends messages from the brain and spinal cord, that is CNS, to the skeletal muscles, allowing you to move your body on purpose, like lifting your hand or lifting your feet while walking. So this system is important for voluntary actions that you control consciously. So we have somatic neural system further, that relays impulses from the CNS to the skeletal muscle, which includes voluntary control. Now we have autonomic neural system. ANS is a part of nervous system that controls involuntary actions like heartbeat and digestion by sending signals from the CNS to the organs and smooth muscles without conscious control. So it helps regulate body functions automatically, ensuring vital processes like breathing and blood pressure are maintained without needing to think about them. So it transmits impulses from the CNS to the involuntary organs. In somatic, we have voluntary control. In autonomic, we have involuntary control. So here what happened? This neural system transmits impulses from the CNS to the involuntary organs and smooth muscles of the body. You have to remember this. So here you can see the picture of division of nervous system. What is CNS? What is PNS? We have just discussed about it in details. So talking about autonomic nervous system, which is ANS, it is further divided into two main parts. That is the sympathetic neural system, which is generally excitatory, or we can say stimulatory, and the parasympathetic neural system, which includes which is usually we can say inhibitory or calming. So the sympathetic system prepares the body for action by increasing the heart rate, dilating airways, and redirecting blood flow to the muscles, helping the body respond to stress or danger. This system is often referred to as flight or fight response. So you can see the picture, division of the nervous system. The sympathetic neural system is generally excitatory or stimulatory, and parasympathetic neural system, which is generally inhibitory or calming. So the parasympathetic nervous system, as we have just discussed, it is also a part of ANS, generally works to calm the body, slowing down processes like heart rate and digestion, helping the body relax and conserve energy. So the visceral nervous system is a part of PNS that helps control the movement of signals between the CNS and internal organs like the heart, stomach, and lungs. It includes nerves, fibers, ganglia, plexuses that carry messages from the CNS to these organs and back, and helping regulating the bodily functions such as heartbeat, digestion, and breathing. So let's talk about structure of neuron. So you can see the structure of neuron. You can see dendrites, nucleus craniosus, cell body, nucleus, Schwann cells, axon, myelin sheath, node of Ranvier, axon terminal, and synaptic knob. So these all components of neuron plays a crucial role in transmitting nerve impulses. Let's see the detail. So a neuron has major three parts, that is cell body, dendrites and axon. So dendrites, you can see in the picture, dendrites, these are like fibers. They receive signals, the body, here the cell body possesses them, and the axon sends signals. Okay. So dendrites receive signals. Talking about cell body, the cell body possesses them. The cell body have dendrites and the axon sends a final signal. Okay. So you can think like this. Dendrites receive signal and and dendrites are present on the cell body, and axons, you can say, transmit the signal or sends away the signal. Now the cell body, also known as the cyton or soma, is the main part of the neuron. It contains the nucleus which holds these cells genetic material and the cytoplasm where various cell organelles like mitochondria, ribosomes and ER are found. These organelles help in carrying out essential functions like energy production, protein synthesis and cell maintenance, which are very important for neuron to function properly. We have just discussed the cell body contains in nucleus and cytoplasm with typical cell organelles, and it has granular bodies called as Nissus granules. What are Nissus granules? These are the clusters of rough ER and free ribosomes found in the cytoplasm of neurons, and they are responsible for protein synthesis, which is essential for functioning and maintenance of nerve cells. Now dendrites, these are short branch extensions that come out of the cell body of a neuron, and their main job is to receive signals from other neurons or sensory receptors. So they act like tiny antennas, capturing information and passing it towards the cell body, which then decides whether to send a signal along the axon to other parts of the nervous system. So this helps in communication within the brain and throughout the body. So dendrites are short branch fibers projecting out of the cell body, also contain Nissus granules. So talking about neuron, in general, it is a basic structure and functional unit of the nervous system, responsible for receiving, integrating and transmitting information through electrical and chemical signals. That consists of cell body, which is soma, which contains the nucleus and other organelles, and it extends processes called dendrites and an axon. So the cell body here also contains Nissus granules, as we have just discussed, which are the clusters of rough endoplasmic reticulum and ribosomes involved in protein synthesis, which is essential for the neuron's function as well as maintenance. So here the function is given that it transmits impulses toward the cell body. Okay. So neurons are described, as we have just discussed, that they are described as the basic units of the nervous system, and they consist of cell body, dendrites and axon. So the axon's main function is to carry out electrical impulses or we can say nerve signals from the cell body to the axon terminals. Okay. So this transmission of impulses allow communication between neurons and between the neurons and other parts of the body, enabling responses to the stimuli. Let's talk about axon in detail. So it is a long single fiber that extends from the cell body of the neuron and branches at the end, allowing the neuron to send electrical signals to other cells sufficiently. So you can see in this picture also. So it is a long single fiber branching at its distal end, and here each nerve branch ends in a bulb-shaped structure. We can call it as synaptic knob, which contains small sacs known as synaptic vesicles. These vesicles hold chemicals called as neurotransmitters. This is very important. Just keep it in your mind. So these vesicles hold chemicals called as neurotransmitters that are released to send messages to other nerve cells or muscles, allowing communication within the nervous system. Now, axon, we know we have just covered that it is a long, thin fiber that carries electrical signals called as impulses away from the cell body of the neuron to the synapses, or we can say to the neuromuscular junction, which allows communication between the neurons and we can say between a neuron or muscle cell. So this function is essential for transmitting messages throughout the nervous system. So they transmit impulses away from the cell body to synapse, or we can say neuromuscular junction. Let's see types of neurons. So in this picture, you can see different types of neuron: unipolar, bipolar, pseudo unipolar, and multipolar. Okay, you can see their structure. So this division is based on number of axon and dendrites. So let's talk about it. Multipolar, talking about multipolar, it is a type of nerve cell that has one single axon and two or more dendrites, which are the structures that receive signals from other neurons. So this structure is commonly found in the cerebral cortex, which is the outer layer of the brain responsible for higher functions like thinking, memory, and decision making. So the multipolar neurons play a key role in processing and transmitting information within the brain and throughout the nervous system. Talking about pseudo-unipolar neuron, it is a type of sensory neuron that has a single axon which splits into two branches, one carrying sensory information toward the CNS and the other transmitting signals away from the body, typically found in dorsal root ganglia. So this structure allows for rapid transmission of sensory signals such as touch or pain from the periphery to the spinal cord. Now, talking about bipolar neuron, it is a type of neuron found in the retina of the eye which has one axon and one dendrite. So, this is named because of this. Now, this structure allows it to receive signals from photoreceptors such as rods and cones. So, they are talking about photoreceptor cells through its dendrite and then transmit the process visual information via its axon to other neurons in the retina or to the brain, playing a major role in the initial processing of light signals into neural impulses. Now, let's talk about unipolar neuron. So, in the embryonic stage, a unipolar neuron has a cell body with only one axon, meaning it does not have a distinct dendrites and axon like mature neurons. So this structure is unique to certain neurons during early development and is different from the more complex bipolar or multipolar neurons found in the adult nervous system. So you can see majorly there are four types of neuron. One is multipolar, pseudo-unipolar, bipolar, and unipolar. Let's see neuron cells based on myelin sheath. So majorly we have myelinated and non-myelinated. Okay. So in this figure also we can see myelinated and non-myelinated neuron. And myelinated neurons have a fatty covering. They are called myelinated neurons because they have fatty covering of myelin. Okay. So they have a fatty covering called as myelin sheath around their axons, which help in faster transmission of nerve impulses by allowing the signal to jump between the gaps called as nodes of Ranvier. The non-myelinated neurons lack this sheath, so the signal travels more slowly along the entire length of the axon. This difference is important for efficient communication in the nervous system. So I've just discussed these are myelinated axons are the nerve fibers covered by Schwann cells which wrap around the axon to form a thick insulating layer called the myelin sheath. This sheath helps speed up the transmission of electrical signals along the nerve by allowing the nerve impulse to jump between the gaps in the sheath known as nodes of Ranvier, making communication in the nervous system faster and more efficient. So, myelinated axons enveloped with Schwann cells which form myelin sheath, and it has gaps between two adjacent myelin sheaths which are called as nodes of Ranvier. So the gaps between two adjacent myelin sheaths are called as nodes of Ranvier. And these are small non-myelinated regions on the axon where the axon membrane is exposed. So they're important because they allow the electrical action, or we can say electrical signal, to jump quickly from one node to the next, which speeds up the transmission of nerve impulses. And this process together called as saltatory conduction, which makes communication in the which is responsible for the communication in the nervous system and it make it more efficient. Okay, so it is found in spinal and cranial nerves. That means the presence of certain structures or components within the nervous system, specifically in the spinal and cranial nerves. So this typically relates to nerve fibers, or we can say specific types of neurons that are part of the peripheral nervous system, which includes both spinal nerves which originate from the spinal cord and cranial nerves which originates from the brain. So these nerves are responsible for transmitting signals between the CNS and rest of the body, enabling sensory and motor functions. Let's talk about non-myelinated axons. These are the nerve fibers that are not covered by a myelin sheath, which is typically formed by the Schwann cells. So in these axons, the Schwann cells surrounds the axon but does not create the thick insulating layer seen in the myelinated fibers. So this lack of myelination means that the electrical impulses travel more slowly along these axons compared to the myelinated ones. So this type of axon is common in smaller nerves and it is involved in transmitting signals that require more precise and slower responses, such as those in pain and temperature sensations. So it is majorly found in autonomic and somatic neural system. So it refers to the structures or functions that are present in both ANS and SNS, or we can say somatic nervous system. So the ANS, which is called as autonomic nervous system, controls involuntary actions like heart rate and digestion, while the SNS controls voluntary movements like muscle contractions. However, certain components such as sensory neurons or specific types of nerve fibers can be found in both systems, allowing for communication between the CNS and different parts of the body. So this overlap highlights the interconnected nature of these systems in maintaining bodily functions. So let's talk about generation and conduction of nerve impulse, and this will cover NCERT section 18.3.1. So this is very important. Sodium potassium pump. It is a protein in the axon membrane that actively transports 3 sodium ions out of the cell and 2 potassium ions into the cell using energy from the ATP. So this process creates and maintains the resting potential of the neuron by keeping more sodium outside and more potassium inside, which is essential for generating and transmitting nerve impulses. Now neurons, we have discussed already that these are special cells that can respond quickly to the signals, and their membranes are in a polarized state, meaning that there is a difference in the electrical charge inside and outside of the cell, with the inside being negatively charged and outside being positively charged. Now, this polarization is crucial because it allows neurons to generate and transmit electrical impulses, which is known as action potential, when they receive a stimulus, which is essential for communication in the nervous system. So, when a neuron is in resting state, this is very important. You have to listen carefully. So, when a neuron is in the resting state, it means it is not transmitting any signal. During this time, the inside of the neuron is negatively charged compared to the outside due to the movement of ions like potassium and sodium across the cell membrane. So this creates a resting potential of about minus 70 MV, which is maintained by the potassium-sodium pump and the selective permeability of the membrane. Okay, so this resting potential is majorly maintained by sodium-potassium pump and the selective permeability of the membrane. And this state is essential for the neuron to be ready to respond to stimuli and generate an action potential when needed. So, ionic gradients. So, the axonal membrane allows potassium ions or K plus ions to pass through easily, but blocks sodium ions Na plus almost completely, creating an ionic gradient. So, in brief, we can say that axonal membrane allows potassium ions to pass through easily, but blocks sodium ions almost completely, creating an ionic gradient. Okay, and this difference in permeability is the key to how neurons generate and transmit electrical signals, as the movement of potassium out of the cell and sodium into the cell during an action potential helps create the nerve impulse. So the axonal membrane is not permeable to negatively charged proteins found in the exoplasm, which helps in maintaining the resting potential by preventing the leakage of these charged particles across the membrane. So as we have discussed that during resting state, the inside of the axon has high concentration of potassium ions and the outside has high concentration of sodium ions. This concentration gradient is maintained by the sodium-potassium pump, which actively transport 3 potassium ion out of the cell and 3 sodium ions out of the cell and 2 potassium ions into the cell using energy from the ATP. And this setup is crucial for generating action potentials, as the sudden influx of sodium during depolarization and subsequent efflux of potassium during repolarization allow nerve impulses to travel along the axon. So I've just discussed about sodium potassium pump. It is a protein in the axon membrane that moves 3 sodium ions out and 2 potassium ions in using ATP. So let's see. So when a neuron is at rest, the inside of the cell is negatively charged compared to the outside, creating a resting potential of about minus 70 MV. Now this happens because the cell membrane is more permeable to potassium ions which leak out of the cell, making the inside more negative. Now sodium ions on the other hand are trapped inside due to membrane's low permeability to them, and the sodium potassium pump actively moves 3 sodium ions out for every 2 potassium ions it bring in, helping maintain this charge difference. Okay. Now this resulting potential, or we can say this resting potential, is essential for the neuron to respond to stimuli by generating an action potential. Now the sodium potassium pump is a protein in the cell membrane that uses energy from ATP to move 3 sodium ions out of the cell and 2 potassium ions into the cell, maintaining an electrochemical gradient essential for nerve impulse transmission and muscle contraction. Okay. Now let's talk about polarized state. What happened? So in the polarized state of neuron, the outer side of the axon's membrane has a positive charge and the inner side has a negative charge, and this happens because of the movement of ions across the membrane, with the more sodium ions outside and more potassium ions inside the cell, creating an electrical imbalance. Now this charge difference is essential for the neuron to transmit signals quickly and efficiently, as it allows for generation and propagation of nerve impulses. We have just discussed. So the resting potential is the electrical charge difference across the plasma membrane of a neuron when it is not effectively, or we can say not actively, transmitting signals. Now this happens because the cell membrane is more permeable to potassium ions than the sodium ions, leading to higher concentration of potassium ions inside the cell and sodium ions outside the cell. So as a result, the inside of the cells become negatively charged compared to the outside, typically around minus 70 MV, and the stable electrical state is maintained by sodium-potassium pump, which actively transports ions against their concentration gradients, ensuring the resting potential is sustained. So you can see this graph is very important. This graph is showing overall action potential. You can see how the stimulus, depolarization, repolarization, and resting state. We have just talked about it, how these phases are caused. So, talking about action potential, it is an electrical signal that travels along a nerve cell, which is when it is stimulated, allowing communication between the neurons and muscles. So it begins. Let's start with the beginning. So it begins when a stimulus makes the neuron's membrane potential more positive than usual, reaching a threshold. Okay, and this triggers voltage-gated sodium channels to open, allowing sodium ions to rush in, making the inside of the neuron more positive. And this is the rising phase. Now, then what happened afterwards? Then voltage-gated potassium channels open, allowing potassium ions to flow out, making the inside more negative again. And this is the falling state. So we have just seen the rising phase, and then first we have seen threshold. Then we have seen rising phase, and third is falling phase. Now afterwards, the neuron briefly becomes hyperpolarized before returning to its resting state and ready to fire again. So this process is essential for transmitting signals in the nervous system. So we have just discussed action potential is an electrical signal that travels along a nerve fiber when a neuron is stimulated. It starts with a change in the neuron's membrane potential where sodium ions rush in and become making the inside of the neuron positively charged, which is called as depolarization. Now this change is rapid and brief, followed by outflow of potassium ions, which restores the normal charge, known as repolarization. This whole process ensures the signal moves quickly and efficiently from one part of the neuron to another, allowing for fast communication in the nervous system. So when a stimulus is applied, the neuron generates an action potential, which is an electrical signal that travels along the nerve fiber. So this happens when the stimulus is strong enough to depolarize the neuron's membrane, making the inside less negative. Now this triggers an all or nothing response where sodium channels open, allowing sodium ions to rush in, creating a rapid change in the voltage. And this electrical impulse then moves very quickly through the neuron, allowing the neuron to transmit signals to another cells efficiently. Now, during depolarization, what happens? The cell membrane or the stimulated site becomes very leaky to sodium ions, allowing a large number of sodium ions to rush into the cell. And this sudden influx of positive charges make the inside of the cell more positive compared to the outside, reversing the resting membrane potential. Now, this rapid change in the charge is a key step in generation of an action potential, which is essential for transmitting electrical signals in neuron and muscle cells. So we have just covered that the membrane at the stimulated site becomes freely permeable to sodium, and what happened afterward? This leads to rapid influx of sodium, reversing the polarity of the site. So when the neuron is stimulated, voltage-gated sodium channels open, allowing a rapid influx of sodium into the neuron. And this suddenly entry of sodium causes the inside of the neuron to become positively charged, reversing the normal polarity of the cell membrane. And this reversal is crucial as it creates the depolarization phase of the action potential, enabling the signal to travel along the neuron. So when a cell membrane is exposed to a solution, the outer surface of the membrane becomes negatively charged due to the accumulation of negatively charged ions like chloride, while the inner side becomes positively charged because of the movement of positively charged ions like sodium. Now this charge separation creates an electrical potential across the membrane, which is essential for processes like nerve impulses, transmission, and active transport in biology. So when a nerve cell is stimulated, it generates an electrical change called as action potential, which is like a quick electrical signal that travels along the nerve. And this happens when the inside of the nerve cell becomes less negative compared to the outside due to movement of ions across the cell membrane. We have just talked about it. Now, this change in the electrical potential difference is what makes the nerve impulse travel, allowing messages to be sent quickly from one part of the body to the other. Let's talk about conduction. Now, conduction in neurons here refers to how an action potential travels along the nerve fiber. So, when an action potential occurs at one point, it creates a change in the membrane potential that that acts as a stimulus for the neighboring area, causing it to also depolarize. Now, this process continues along the neuron, allowing electrical signals to move quickly from one part of the neuron to another, which is very important for communication in the neural system. So the impulse propagates along the length of the axon as a wave of depolarization. So when an impulse travels along an axon, it moves as a wave of depolarization. That is, the inside of the axon briefly become less negative compared to the outside. Now, this happens due to the opening of sodium channels, allowing sodium ions to rush in, which makes the membrane potential more positive, and the change in the charge triggers adjacent sections of the axon, creating a continuous wave-like movement of the impulse from the cell's body towards the axon terminals, enabling communication between the neurons. So let's talk about repolarization. It is the phase where cell returns to its resting state. So this happens because the permeability of the sodium permeability to the sodium ions is short-lived kind of. So once the sodium channels closes, the cells can no longer allow a large influx of sodium ions. As a result, the membrane potential starts to decrease, move back towards the resting potential of around minus 70 MB, and this is mainly due to opening of the sodium channels, which allow sodium. This mainly happens due to the opening of potassium channels, not sodium channels. Potassium channels, which allow potassium ions to flow out of the cell, restoring the negative charge inside. So permeability to sodium is short-lived. Now, permeability to potassium rises and potassium diffuses out, restoring the resting potential at the site of excitation. So, what it is saying about when excitation occurs, permeability to sodium ions increases and sodium diffuses out of the cell, moving down its concentration gradient. Now, this outward movement restores the negative charge inside the cell, bringing the membrane potential back to its resting state. Now, the process is driven by diffusion, not active transport. So, transmission of impulses, and this section will cover NCERT section 18.3.2. So, let's talk about synapse, which is an important topic. So, a synapse is a tiny gap between two nerve cells or neurons where signals are passed from one neuron to another. In a synapse, we can say the electrical signal from the first neuron triggers the release of chemical messengers called neurotransmitters, which crosses the gap and bind to the receptors on the next neuron, allowing the signals to continue. Now, this process enables communication within the nervous system, and it is important for all our thoughts, movements, and responses. So, these are the tiny gap between two nerve cells, or we can say neurons, where signals are passed from one neuron to another. So, let's talk about synaptic cleft. It is a small space between the presynaptic neuron, which sends the signal, and the postsynaptic neuron, which receives the signal, and this gap allows neurotransmitters, which are, we can say, chemical messengers, to be released from the presynaptic neuron and travels across the cleft to bind with receptors on the postsynaptic neuron, thereby transmitting the nerve impulses from one neuron to another. So let's talk about, we have different types of synapses. Let's talk about each of them. First, we have electrical synapses. They are the type of connection between the neurons and where the membranes of the sending, or we can say presynaptic and receiving, that is postsynaptic neurons, are very close to each other, allowing ions and small molecules to pass directly through a gap junction. So this direct connection enables rapid and bidirectional communication between neurons, which is faster than chemical synapses. Unlike chemical synapses, which uses neurotransmitters, electrical synapses do not involve a synaptic delay and are often found in situations requiring quick responses, such as in heart muscle cells and during reflex actions. So the membranes of pre and postsynaptic neurons are in very close proximity. Now, impulse transmission is a synapse. In talking about impulse transmission in a synapse, it is very fast, similar to how an electrical impulse travels along a single axon, because neurotransmitters quickly crosses the synaptic gap and trigger the next neuron, allowing rapid communication in the neural system. Now, these rehearsals in our body are uncommon, found in very small numbers, and play a special roles in functions like immunity or hormone production. Chemical synapses, as we have just talked about, these are special connections between the neurons, where a small space called the synaptic cleft separates the two nerve cells. So, this space is filled with fluid, allows chemical messengers called as neurotransmitters to pass from one neuron to another, help to transmit signals across the nervous system. So we have discussed about neurotransmitter already in our previous slides. So it is a fluid-filled synaptic cleft separating the neurons. So these are special chemicals used by the nervous system to pass messages between the nerve cells, allowing the brain and body to communicate and respond to signals. The most common type of synapse is the electrical synapse, which allows for direct communication between the neurons to gap junctions, enabling rapid signal transmission. So, it is often emphasized that the most common of the synapse is the chemical synapse, where neurotransmitters are released from the presynaptic neuron and bind to the receptors on the postsynaptic neuron, allowing for slower but more versatile signal transmission. So we have just talked about it. Chemical synapses. It is a junction between the two neurons where electrical signals are converted into chemical messages to transmit information. Now, when an electrical impulse reaches the end of the neuron, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters from the synaptic vesicles into the synaptic cleft. Now, these neurotransmitters then bind to the receptors on the next neuron, causing a change in its membrane potential, allowing the signal to continue. Now, this process enables communication between neurons and is important to all nervous system functions. So, an action potential arrives at the axon terminal or synaptic nerve. So, when an action potential reaches the axon terminal, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters from the synaptic vesicles into the synaptic cleft, allowing nerve signals to pass from one neuron to another. Now, this process helps nerve cells send signals by moving chemical messengers to the right place, enabling communication between neurons. Now, when a nerve impulse reaches the end of the neuron, the vesicles inside the axon terminal fuse with the cell membrane, releasing neurotransmitters into the synaptic cleft, which is the small gap between the neurons. Now, this allows the signal to pass from one neuron to another by binding these neurotransmitters to receptors on the next neuron, continuing the communication process in the nervous system. So, when nerve impulse reaches the end of the neuron, it triggers the release of neurotransmitter into synapses. These neurotransmitters then travel across the small gap and bind to the specific receptors on the membrane of the next neuron or cell. We can also call this as postsynaptic membrane. So, this binding activates the next neuron, allowing the signal to pass along, which is essential for communication in nervous system. So, we have already discussed about it. And finally, when a neurotransmitter binds to the receptor on its postsynaptic neuron, it opens ion channels in the neuron's membrane, and this allows specific ions like sodium or potassium to flow in or out of the neuron. And the movement of these ions changes the electrical charge inside the neuron, creating a new electrical potential. Now, this potential can either make the neuron more likely to fire an action potential or excitatory, or less likely inhibitory, which is crucial for communication between the neurons in the nervous system. Now, neural cells can be excitatory, making neurons fire, or inhibitory, stopping them, affecting how the brain processes information. So, this new potential can be excitatory or inhibitory. Now, let's bind up the chapter with summary. So, we have covered neural system, which controls body functions, processes information, coordinates movements, enables learning and memory. Now, in the second section, we covered human neural system. There, we covered central nervous system, which includes brain and spinal cord, peripheral nervous system, which includes nerves, then autonomic and somatic divisions, then how the system processes sensory and motor information. Then we covered neuron as structural and functional unit. It contains cell body, which contains soma, dendrites that receive signals, axon that conducts impulses, synapses that connects neurons, and it transmits electrical and chemical signals. And what it majorly does, it enables communication between the cells. And it is specialized for informing processing. So, we learn about neuron. It is the structural and functional unit of our body, or we can say of life. And it includes cell body, dendrites, axons, synapses. It transmits, talking about its functions, as specifically it transmits electrical and chemical signals. It enables communication between the cells, and it is specialized for information processing. Okay, let's see NCRT based question. So this is first question, and we have the question is the differentiate between myelinated and unmyelinated nerve fibers. We have just covered in our lecture that myelinated, they have myelin sheath, and unmyelinated, they don't have myelin sheath. Let's see the answer in detail. So in the figure, you can see myelinated and non-myelinated sheath. And the key difference, I have already told you, it lies in the presence of a myelin sheath, which is a fatty layer that wraps around the zone. In myelinated neurons, the sheath is formed by the Schwann cells in the peripheral nervous system, or we can say oligodendrocytes in the CNS, and it acts as an insulator, allowing electrical impulses to travel faster along the axon. Now, this process, called as saltatory conduction, skips over the myelinated segments, making signal transmission more efficient. So in contrast, talking about non-myelinated neurons, they lack this sheath, or we can say myelin sheath, resulting in slower signal transmission as the impulse must travel continuously along the entire length of the axon. Now, this distinction is crucial for understanding how different parts of the nervous system efficiently transmit information. Now, you can see in in this table, it is given that myelinated nerve fibers covered with myelin sheath conduct impulses faster. They are found in peripheral nerves, and there's nodes of Renvier. On the other hand, unmyelinated nerve fibers, they don't have myelin sheath. They show slower conduction of impulses. They are found in autonomic nerves, and there is no nodes of Renvier. So these are the key differences between myelinated and unmyelinated nerve fibers. Let's see second question, and the question is about neurotransmitter. Let's discuss the answer in detail. So chemical messengers are the chemical messengers, or we can say substances that carry signals from one part of the body to the another, helping cells communicate and coordinate activities. So these messages include hormones, neurotransmitters, and other signaling molecules which travel through the bloodstream or directly between the nerve cells to regulate processes like growth, metabolism, and responses to the stimuli. Now, they play a crucial role in maintaining homeostasis and ensuring the body functions smoothly. They're released as synapses. So, neurotransmitters are released as synapses, which are the junctions between the nerve cells to transmit signals from one neuron to another. So, when an electrical impulse reaches the end of the neuron, it triggers the release of neurotransmitters from synaptic vesicles into the synaptic cleft. Now, these chemicals then bind to the receptors on the next neuron, allowing the signal to pass through and continue the communication in the nervous system. And this process is essential for all nervous system functions, including muscle movement, thought, and sensation. So it has types. And types include like acetylcholine, dopamine, and serotonin. Acetylcholine is involved in muscle contraction and memory, and dopamine is associated with reward and movement, and serotonin plays a crucial role in regulating mood and sleep. So these neurotransmitters are crucial for various bodily functions, and they help transmit signals between nerve cells and connects the body. Let's talk about functions. So it includes signal transmission, mood regulation. It means that how the body and brain control and manage our emotions and emotional stress states, which is essential for maintaining mental health. Okay, so this process involves the nervous system, particularly the brain regions like the limbic system, and the release of neurotransmitters such as serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine, which influence our feelings and behavior. Now, the hypothalamus and pituitary gland also play a key role by regulating hormones that affect mood, and these systems work together to help us respond to stress. So, it helps us keeping us happy, sad, and maintain emotional balance. Memory formation. So, it involves the process by which the brain encodes, stores, and retrieves information. So, when we learn something new, our brain converts this information into a memory through three main stages, that is encoding, storage, and retrieval. Now, during encoding, sensory input is transformed into a form that the brain can process. Now, storage is the retention of encoded information over the time, which can be short term or long term. So, retrieval is the ability to access stored information when needed, and this process is supported by various brain regions, especially the hippocampus, which plays a key role in forming and consolidating long terms. Now, muscle contraction, it is the process by which muscles shorten and generate force, allowing movement in the body, and it occurs through the interaction of two proteins, that is actin and myosin, within muscle fibers. So, when a nerve signal reaches the muscle, it triggers the release of calcium ions, which enable the myosin head to bind to the actin filaments, forming a cross bridge. Now, this binding pulls the actin filaments toward the center of the sarcomere, causing the muscle to contract, and the process is powered by ATP, which provides the energy needed for myosin to detach and reattach, continuing the contraction until the signal stops. So these are some interesting facts about this chapter. The human brain contains approximately 686 billions neurons, which are specialized cells that transmit information through electrical and chemical signals. Now, these neurons form complex networks that enable thinking, memory, learning, and controlling body functions, making the brain one of the most intricate and powerful organs in the human body. The neuron can transmit signals at the speed of 268 miles per hour, which is incredibly fast for communication within the body. Now, this speed helps the nervous system quickly send messages from the brain to different parts of the body, allowing for rapid responses to stimuli such as pulling your hand away from the heat. And this is made possible by the electrical impulses traveling along the neuron's axon, often with the help of myelin sheath, which insulates and speeds up the signal transmission. Now, one neuron can connect to 10,000 other neurons, which shows how complex and interconnected nervous system is. Now, this large number of connections allows the brain to process a vast amount of quick information and efficiently enabling functions like thinking, remembering, and responding to environment. Now, these connections, called as synapses, help neurons communicate with each other through electrical and chemical signals, forming the basis of all brain activities. The next fact is the brain, though only about 2% of the body's weight, uses around 20% of the total body's energy, highlighting its high metabolic demand. Now, this is because the brain requires a constant supply of glucose and oxygen to support its complex functions like thinking, memory, and controlling body processes. So, even when you are resting, your brain is working hard, which is why it needs so much energy compared to other organs. So, this high energy use is due to the numerous electrical and chemical signals that neurons constantly send and receive. Next fact that we have nervous system has about 45 miles of nerves, which means that the total length of all the nerves in our bodies as long as 45 miles. This vast network of nerves helps send messages quickly between the brain, spinal cord, and rest of the body, allowing us to think, move, feel, and respond to the environment. And this large length ensures efficient communication and coordination of all bodily functions, which is essential for survival and daily activities. Then we have information travels via electrical chemical signals. We have talked about it in this chapter. Now, each neuron has around 1,000 to 10,000 other neurons through structures called as synapses, which are the points of communication between the nerve cells. So we can see that each neuron in the human body connects with approximately 1,000 to 10,000 other neurons through structure, or we can say through synapses, which are the point of communication between the nerve cells. Now, these synapses allow neurons to pass electrical and chemical signals to each other, enabling the brain to process information, remember things, and control body functions. And this large number of connections help the nervous system work efficiently and adapt to different situations. During sleep, the brain remains active and performs important functions. This is another amazing fact. So, During sleep, our brain remains active and performs important functions such as memory consolidation, processing information from the day, and clearing out waste products from the brain cells. So, all of which are essential for maintaining cognitive health and overall brain function. So, brain works even during the sleep. So, these are some key points, or we can say interesting facts about this chapter. So these are some interesting questions for you to solve, so that you can check the concepts, or we can say you can check the understanding of this chapter. So you can take screenshot of it and solve it later. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope this lesson was helpful.